Okay. Okay. So under the last class, we were pretty much talking about other components such as the derived column, and we did talk about until up to script component. All right, that was a component we spoke about where we used this script component in a transformation format. Okay, where and which you also have other options such as you could use the script component. No, we did use a script task, not the script component. Script component is a data flow component. Okay, so that means it can be used as a source, or a destination, or a transaction, or an transformation, either of them, right? So we want to build up 3 examples. Okay, Praveen, I want you to pay look at because we'll talk about one of those examples here. Yeah. Okay. Script component. Okay. So from the source instance, let's take up an SQL server. Okay. The server name. Okay, that's my table. Let's assume this is my table. Okay. Out of this, I will take first business entity ID, first name, last name, and email promotion. Let's assume that. Okay. So we'll grab that as a source, and then we'll take this as a transformation. Okay. We could use it as a source as well as a destination. We'll see that in a future example. Okay. So I'm going to grab it as a transformation. So I'll attach it over here. Okay. So the next best thing is you have to open it up where you would not have anything to be read write variables. So pretty much is just to go for an edit script. Here I have choose a C# code to be a part of it. Okay, here is where my C# code would be. One more thing before we get in here is you have to make sure you have all the input rows. So, okay, this is my input 0 and I have chosen all the inputs in. Okay. And also there is something you have to define, which is going to be your output. In the output columns, you may have to add a column. Your output column is going to be whatever you think you would do as a functionality. What in here as a functionality I would like to do is a full name. All right, so I'll say this as a full name. Here being being .NET and all, you have to be so most of the C# code is a case sensitive. So you have to make sure what letters you type, that's the same letters you have to use inside the code too. And this is going to be a DT string. That is what the data type is going to be. Okay. So of length 50 characters, that should do it. So I'm going to say go ahead to script, and now I have to edit it. This is your scripting part. Basically, you'll script your code here wherever your input buffer would start, input 0. That's where we chose all the incoming rows, right? So that is where you would add your code here. Okay. What you want to do is your first name and your last name. Those are the 2 strings what you want to add up, and that's and make it as a full name, right? So what I can do is string as your full name, or I can just say name equals to
నాకు స్క్రిప్ట్ కనిపించట్లేదు.
స్క్రిప్ట్ కనబడట్లేదు. ఇప్పుడు సారీ, సో script dot first name plus n and space with a double quote, and I would say row dot last name. That's how your rows would be called out. Okay, inside the name in now here. So now you have to write it back, right? So row dot full name equal to name and page. Okay. So this is a simple code what I'm writing here, just like a derived column transformation. We took two columns and added it here, first name and last name. It will become full name. You can do the funky stuff too, but it's okay. So rebuild here. Close it. Say okay. That's gone. Now you could use a sort transformation to show the. Now let's use a flat cell. For some reason these components are not moving. Destination assistant. Okay, this one. Let's okay. Okay, flacker destination. It's going to be a new one. So the printed one. Yeah, we'll go browse for it. So name it as an script component.txt. Okay, column name. Make sure you have all the columns. That's good. Say okay. Mapping. Everything is mapped. Successful. Okay, we'll go execute this package up from here. So basically, this is the output file, right? So we're pretty much seeing all of it, whatever we need to see. So because your full name now has a first name plus last name. Right. So let's also do a similar example where we'll use script component as a source itself. So I'll rename this component as transformation. So for the script component as a source, you would use a script component here. So inside the data flow task, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a script component. I'm going to use it as a source. Okay, where in the source, you have to make sure if you have any read-write variables, you could choose it from here. But if you do not, so just go for. Okay, so you may have to define your output columns here first of all. So for the output columns, we'll take 2 or 3 columns, such as ID. Yeah, that's fine. And I'll add a column called name. Country. These are the things. Let's go script it. So as we are taking the source as an script component as a source, we have to write our codes in the inside the script itself, right? So wherein here, this is going to be creating our new row output. That is where you have to write. Whereas in case of transformations, we use it as an IO buffer. That's where we have used it. So whereas in here, you have to use it up here. Okay. So from the code perspective, what we're going to do is we'll implement few rows in here. We'll implement few rows in here. So nothing fancier. Okay, I'm using an example from Google, so I'll just grab it and paste it over here. So in here you could see that we are using a country names where we have a string which will have our country names, and we'll also have an array of string called customer name where it also has a few people's name. Okay, now you are looping around all of it. That means first time it will come over here because this is an array. What will happen in an array is it's just like stored like in a stack format. Okay, simply to explain, it's like a biscuit stored in a pack. That means one after other would be stored right in a sequential order. So so whenever you call it as a country name of one, it'll pick up India. Whenever you call a country name of 0, it will pick India. 1 is USA, and also on, right? In the same way, whenever you call a customer name of 0, it will be tutorials. 1, it would be gateway. 2, it would be young. 3, it would be John, and so on. Okay. So for that, you are using a for loop container. Okay. What happens to the for loop containers? It will go from first of all, this country dot length will give you how many variables you have in here. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That means it will replace this number with 10. So this loop will run for 10 times, starting from 0 to 10. Okay, with an increment of 1 every time for every run. So what it is doing is it is adding a output to our output buffer. Adding a row for the country and the name itself. Okay. Any questions here?
No.
Oh, all right. Uh, I may have okay, something like this. I have to do is output buffer. Output buffer 0. Oh, output 0. Because my thing would be an output 0. Okay. Okay. Just a second. A small thing. What I'll do is I'll set this as my output. Okay. So go. Why is my script component is crashing? Why is it? Huh? For some reason, my script component keeps on crashing. Okay. Okay. That is this one. So we will go and build it. So now a code is replaced and all. Okay. Say okay. Then from the source you could either just show it on a transformation. So any transformation is fine. So in this aspect, we'll use an sort transformation. For that, I'll just enable the data viewer. If I run this one, even yeah, so you could see that whatever variables we defined in there, we are seeing it in the forms of rows, right? So that was our example. So let's a little bit background about it. We'll go back onto the script again. The things we did when once we decided that we would use a script component as a source is, first of all, we defined an output uh, saying that output is my output, and our output has few columns, say country, name, and ID. ID being and data type of ID, whereas the other two would be a DT string with 50 characters and all, right? So the second thing is that we named our output as my output. That's one major thing. Inside the script component, what we did was we did add our code to create new output rows. That is the block where you have to add your code. So in this, this is a block. These are all pre-built, right? This is a piece of code what we have added here. Okay. So in this part, what we have defined is we have defined two arrays, just like a biscuit packet. And first biscuit name is India, second, third, and all. So we have stack of components, stack of elements, you can say, in a country name stack. At the same time, you'll have a customer name stack where you have all the custom names one by one. Okay. Whenever you say one inside the brackets with the customer name, just like here, customer name or a country name, it'll get you respective things. So that is either 0, 1. If you say 0, it would be India. 1 is the USA and all. So further. So within this particular part is where we are looping around. So we are looping from 0 to 10, basically. And in there, we are going and adding for one row at a time. Okay, that is our script. Nothing fancy here. Okay, then you would do and build successfully. That's what you would definitely do. So if you want to re-execute it, you could just right click and say execute task. And this is what you would usually see. Okay. So I'll do a thing. I'll share your website where you could do one more example as script component as a destination, which I want you to do as a practice. Okay. I'll go share it in the WhatsApp. The next component is going to be, I'll pick up another data flow task. Okay, we'll talk about slowly changing dimension later. So we completed union and all. We'll talk about audit transformation. Audit transformation is quite a simpler one. So let's say if I have a source assistant and I'll go pick up Adventure Works table. Let's say if I'm picking person table. So these are the columns what I would have picked, right? So let's say imagine you're working in such a huge organization where you have data stored everywhere. Okay, we are talking in concept in sense like a big superstore, could be a Walmart as an example, right? No, so let's say you sell your products in a Walmart. So Walmart would have its own internal database, right? Every Walmart store would have its own internal database. So whenever you buy a product or sell a product, whenever they sell a product to us, it will be registered in the local database. But you can go and register it on a different store too, right? How? Because this data they have in their local store would be transmitted to the centralized warehouse. Okay, so to identify, because all of its data would be same, right? Product name, ID, in person who it got sold to, credit card number, and all those information would be pretty much same, right? So, but they have to know which store they bought it from, or which store they bought it from. So on every store they'll have this SSIS package where they'll select all the information what they want to send it to a big data warehouse, and in fact they can add a component called audit transformation where it will have information such as where it is coming from. So let's say imagine you want to add a column saying source. You could say that it is coming from this machine or this location or this from this username. Based on the username also you can find, right? So let's say your Bombay store is executing with the username of Bombay, you could identify it. Or your mission name, by your mission name, you can also find where exactly is the data coming from. So you can identify those rows. So let's say if you take the username as an audit transformation, then like you could see give me a second. So let's run it as something else. Not even the mission. Let's run this as a package ID. So if you start the package, you could see it around here that this is the unique ID of this particular package. So you know where exactly is this data coming from. So let's say your other store is also running the same package to push the data into a same table. Based on this ID, you would know which store it has come from. So your receipt would usually have the store ID in the barcode. When they scan it and all, they'll understand where exactly is it coming from. Okay. So audit transformation is something which will help you to identify the row it came from, source. Okay. Even you could have the source itself have a column which is static information and all. That is also an available option. But for some reason, if you ever want to have an audit audit information, you could have it here, but nothing as a compulsion. Okay, it's in there component back from 2005. It is there. Okay. So that's about audit transformation. Any questions, Praveen?
No, good.
Okay. So next thing we will learn about is going to be our catchy transformation. So in our previous class, if you have remember, we spoke about a lookup transformation, right? So lookup transformation is something which will help you to look up, right? So let's say you have a source system where you have 10 or 12 rows, and to a destination system, you moved all the 10 or 12 rows. So now on the source system, you have 10 more rows added again. That means now you have 22 rows on the source system, whereas your destination only has 12 rows. You have to equate it. Okay. One of the two options is you could go delete all the rows from the destination and copy all the 22 rows from the source to destination. That is one option, right? Whereas the other option is you have to know what are the changes that happened and what are the new rows. Okay. If you know the changes, you could just update the destination rows. If there are new rows on the source system itself, then you could just add those rows to the destination. Okay. In that particular case, lookup transformation is a right transformations to use. Okay. Whatever you have a matching, it will just say, okay, these are the matching information. Whereas if you don't have a matching information, it will say, okay, you don't have a matching. These are the non-matching information. So let's pick up a table. Okay. So here we have this AdventureWorks as a table, right? So I'll say I select top 1000 rows. So if I execute it, all the 1000 rows will be moved. That's good. Okay. So from the source assistant, and I'll say AdventureWorks as a source, and in here I would have person table as a source because this had more rows. But these are the columns. Whereas the lookup transformation, which when mapped here, in the previous example, we never touched any of these options. We pretty much left it as a full cache and no OLDB connection manager. The only thing we would have done is redirect rows to a no match output. Okay. From the connections, let's go and connect it to dbo.person_0. So component what we're gonna match is on this one. So we'll have all of it. Okay. So let's imagine I have two components. The one is a match. Another is unmatched, right? So empty text. Okay, which one is empty text? Probably in this columns I have chosen all of it, where I should have done business entity, first name, last name, and email promotion. That's only what I want. So resolve references, that's what you would click, and you would say delete unmapped input columns. Go for it. Here, that's what we want. Okay. So if we run this, let's put the references in here so that you can see what exactly is the data moving up and down. Let's execute it. So that means from person.person, which is our source table, when data is moving, it says that these are our matching outputs, whereas the rest is non-matching output. So this one, which is a match output, it has a matches. So remember all the email promotions with a 0 and business entity between 1000 is what it will all match, right? Whereas the other one with the email promotion 1 or 2 or 0, it doesn't matter, but the email promotion could be anywhere from greater than 1000 or anything like that. Okay, so my example, which is going to be a catchy one, what would happen here is because your destination is being used, or your destination table here is being used as a referential table here, right? So in the referential table, you do not want your referential table to be pulled every time, right? So for that reason, you would use a catchy transformation to catch this information. So next time you don't have to scan through the table again and again. Okay, so I'll show you that example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a catchy transformation in the data flow task. Okay, so let's assume this is in here. I'll go use a catchy transformation. So prior to that, I have to have a source. From the source instance, I'm going to pick up the SQL Server where I have my source, which is going to be this one. I don't need all the columns, but the first name, last name, and email promotion, that's what I would need. Grab it, put it up here. So defining the catchy transformation is a little bit not tricky, but simple one. You have to create a file with an extension of CAW. So here I said I would go create a new connection manager. So I'll use a catchy file. So go back and inside your training or whatever folder you want to do it, you could say CAW. So this is going to be test dot CAW. So these are all the columns. I'll have one of its index position as 1. Mapping is mapping. So that will create my catchy transformation. So once I am done with it, I'll use this catchy transformation in my lookup. Now instead of an OLEDB, I would say use a catchy transformation. And in the connection, you can pick up from there. Here is what I would all need. So nothing would change. Pretty much everything would be remaining same. Now, if we remember here in the lookup transformation, we were talking from a database, right? Now you do not have an OLEDB connection. It will read it from the catchy file, the file we have stored on the disk. So whereas other options are partial catchy and no catchy, because we are using catchy, we can use a full catchy method. Okay, so let's run it. We will run this one first. Okay, so you can go back and see that the catchy connection manager has created a test.catchy file, CAW file. Right, even though that is not readable by human, you cannot open it. You can open it, but you cannot read anything out of it. So that's useless aspect. Okay, this is the file you would usually see, which is not an understandable file. So it's waste, right? So that as an input, if we run this particular transformation or a component, you could say that it would use the same catchy file instead of going back to the table and talking. This kind of scenarios would be used when you have millions and millions of the records. If you have to scan, what generally happens is for every row in this source component, it will go through the lookup transformation. That means it has to revolve around for 19,000 times. Imagine your lookup transformation had 10 million records. So that 19,000 into 10 million is like 190 million records, right? It has to go through those things. That doesn't make sense if you are using database. And people would be slowed down if you are using database. Instead, copy all that data into a file where nobody is using except you. Then you could run through it, right? So that was the example I want to prove here. Okay. Any questions on the catchy transformation? Okay. Go look it back. Ask me any questions you have, because unless until you practice, you would never get a doubt. And if you don't get a doubt, I cannot help you. All right. Only your practice would make you better and perfect at this thing. So let's disable this component. So create one more data flow. Inside the data flow, what are we doing here? Catchy is done. So in fact, let's stop here, because too many components would also confuse you, and at the same time they have to look through this recorded video, right? So I will stop here. So we'll meet tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.